Hi my dear students, today we can discuss another topic after February. In the previous class we discussed February Revolution in Petrograd, and also we concluded that the formation of a provisional government to run the country in Russia. And today after February we have to discuss. Here the army officials, landowners and industrialists, they were the influential in provisional government. That means the important members of the provisional government were army officials, landowners and industrialists. But the liberals as well as socialists among them worked towards an elected government. So here liberals and socialists worked for an elected government. There were restrictions on public meetings and associations earlier. Now it was removed. So here restrictions were removed on public meetings and associations. Soviets like Petrograd Soviet were set up everywhere. Soviets were set up everywhere. The same time there were no common system of election, but Soviets were set up everywhere in Russia. Then in April 1917, who was the Bolshevik leader here? Vladimir Lenin. Bolshevik leader Vladimir Lenin. He returned back to Russia from his exile. That means earlier he was sent exile or sent another country without his own will. So what happened now? April 1917, Bolshevik leader, he returned back to Russia. He and his Bolsheviks, means he and his party known as Bolsheviks, they opposed the war since 1914. Since 1914, they opposed the First World War or the Russia's role in the First World War. Now he felt that it was time for Soviets to take over power. Now Lenin thought that it was the time for Soviets to take over power. Then he declared that the war be brought to a close. He declared that the war be brought to a close. And what was his second demand? Land be transferred to the peasants. Then the third one, known as banks, be nationalized. And these three demands of Vladimir Lenin, known as April thesis. So what were the demands referred in Lenin's April thesis? World war should be brought to an end. Land should be transferred to the peasants. Bank should be nationalized. So you have to underline these points about Lenin's April thesis and his three demands. You have to underline. Then he argued that the Bolshevik party renamed itself the Communist Party to indicate its new radical aims. So in order to show or in order to demonstrate its new radical aims, Bolshevik party renamed itself as the Communist Party of Russia. So now the Bolshevik party renamed as Communist Party. Most others in the Bolshevik party were initially surprised by the April thesis. So some other members in the Bolshevik party, they were surprised by the April thesis. They thought that the time was not yet suitable for the socialist revolution and the provisional government need to be supported. So the other party, those or other members, those who surprised to the April thesis, they thought that the time was not suitable for a socialist revolution and they want to support the provisional government. But the developments of the subsequent months changed their attitude. So what happened? The developments that occurred in Russia under Vladimir Lenin, that changed that members' attitude. Though through the summer, the workers' movement spread. Through the summer 1970, what happened? Workers' movement spread in industrial areas. Factory committees were formed which began questioning the way industries ran their factories. So what happened? There were factory committees formed. And these factory committees started questioning the way industries ran their factories. Trade unions grew in number, means many trade unions developed there. Soldiers committees were formed in the army. So among the workers, trade unions formed. Among the soldiers committees were formed. And in June, about 500 Soviets sent representatives to an all Russian Congress Soviets. So what happened now? There were 500 Soviets, and these 500 Soviets sent their representatives to an all Russian Congress of Soviets. As the provisional government saw its power reduce and Bolshevik power or Bolshevik influence grow. So what happened? Because of the growth of the Soviets, the provisional government saw that the power of provisional government reducing, at the same time the influence of the Bolsheviks that growing. It decided then, the provisional government decided to take some strong measures against the spreading of discontent against or dissatisfaction against the provisional government. It protested or resisted attempts by workers to run factories and began arresting leaders. The provisional government started arresting the important leaders of the workers. Popular demonstrations staged by the Bolsheviks in July 1917 were strongly suppressed by the provisional government. Then many Bolshevik leaders, they had to go into hiding or flee. Some of the Bolshevik leaders had to go into hiding or they escaped from there. Meanwhile, in the countryside, peasants and their socialist revolutionary leaders, you know that the peasants party known as socialist party or socialist revolutionary, you know that the workers, socialist, democratic workers party at the same time, peasants group known as Socialist Revolutionary Party. So here in the countryside, peasants and their socialist revolutionary leaders, they give more stress, more importance for a redistribution of land. For this, land committees were formed and encouraged by these socialist revolutionaries, peasants seized land between July and September 1917. So from the nobles or from the landlords, the peasants, they were encouraged by the socialist revolutionaries, and now they showed their courage to seize the court land from the nobles between July and September 1917. So after February, what happened in Russia, now we discussed. So here the important point we discussed, the Lenin's April thesis we discussed. The important points what we discussed, Lenin's April thesis. Why did the Bolshevik party accept the April thesis we discussed? The thing is that the provisional government, this provisional government failed to fulfill the aspirations of the people, like land to the tiller, peace, control of industries by the workers. So what happened? Bolshevik party, they tried to accept the April thesis, and the government was under the influence of landowners, army officials and industrialists that affected its decision. Then Lenin felt that time had come to seize the power from the government. People's demands were included in the program along with the exit from the war and nationalization of banks. Lenin's view was accepted when the provisional government began suppressing the Bolsheviks. So this area we have to discuss. So we have to study here the role of Lenin in Russian Revolution. So this part you have to read 1 or 2 times and underline the important points. Thank you. Have a nice day.